The LA Clippers fell to 0-2 with James Harden in the lineup after being swept in New York. This time a 100-93 loss of the Brooklyn Nets. What went wrong? Why do the Clippers look so all over the place since James Harden has arrived? And what are a couple of solutions to the problems? Going to be talking about that on today's Locked On Clippers.
You are Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, sir. You are locking in with the Clips. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day, your team every day. I'm your host, Darian Vaziri, born and raised in LA, and in my 19th season as a Clipper fan. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod and subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, for even more LA Clipper and LA sports content. Went live directly after the game to talk about it, raw reaction, and Locked On Clippers, free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, where I want you to let me know what you think of the team since we got James Harden and what you thought of the game. Or just let me know anything about how you're feeling in regards to Clipper basketball. This episode is brought to you by Jace. Get the Jace case. I've got one right here. 5 life-saving antibiotics in there. That's JASEmedical.com. Anyway, let's get into the game. The Clippers losing this one 100-93, dropping to 0-2 with James Harden. And in my opinion, right now, every single thing I said about why I didn't want the trade to go down is happening right in front of our eyes. The clunkiness offensively. I just want to say and remind people that I didn't say that the team would have bad chemistry in the sense of they don't like each other. But the on-court basketball fit is just weird. Everybody kept pointing to Harden and Westbrook in Houston. The difference was they didn't have 2 better players that they had to give the ball to. That is what I kept emphasizing. So, first off, it just feels as though everything is a dead ball, Ty Lue calling a play situation when those 4 are in the game. And it's just like Ty Lue basically designating where we go each possession. Okay, this time we're going to run a play for Kawhi. This time for Paul George. And then in transition, it feels like the guys are just... And when I say transition, I just mean rebounding off a miss where Ty's not calling out a set, because usually Ty will call out sets after timeouts, of course, and then on dead balls. But I think, honestly, Ty should call fewer sets, believe it or not, in my opinion, on dead balls, because we have 4 star caliber players. Let them rock a little bit. Let them see where the offense goes. However, I still like some of the plays that Ty has ran. It's just that, or Ty has run, Jesus. But especially this one, right? This is one that they keep using, and it's a pin down being set for either Harden or Russ. And by the way, I haven't seen James Harden come off this many screens, I don't think ever. But they'll come off the pin down and catch the ball 18 feet away, and then there'll be another off-ball action, like a curl set for Kawhi or Paul on the left or right wing. Usually the left wing, it seems like. Russ and Harden being that trigger man in that, 18 feet away that comes off that screen, that initiator. And Harden's gotten a couple assists off of that. Russ got a couple of assists off of that, especially before Harden came. But it just feels as though it's very your turn, my turn. We're not getting enough stops throughout the game. I mean, in this game, we actually started out getting a good amount. The Nets only scored 13 points in the first quarter, but 33 points in the second quarter, 27 in the third, and 27 in the fourth. The Nets still got a decent amount of buckets as the game went on. It was just that first quarter was so weird. And when you don't get enough stops, you don't secure enough rebounds, you're not able to get in transition like that. And it just feels like the Clippers are playing a slow, half-court offense. And I always say this, right? I know that the only one ball thing is cliche, but at the end of the day, if you're not getting an offensive rebound, you are only getting 1 shot per possession, right? 1 player is shooting that shot. So you might have 4 players that are better than, your starting lineup. The majority of your players in your starting lineup might be better than the other teams, or in your lineup on the floor might be better than the other teams, but if it's not a very seamless fit, you don't always feel it. Because at the end of the day, NBA players are getting a shot up on each possession, right, on either side. What's the difference in the shot quality? If they're both getting good looks, it really just matters who's in more rhythm and who's just make or miss lead kind of thing, who's making the shots on that given night. But the thing is that Brooklyn Nets players are just playing their roles. And right now the Clippers stars are adjusting. And there's a fine balance between deferring and being aggressive, and we are just not finding that balance. And here are a couple examples of that. Russ and Harden together is a disaster in my opinion. They're both not very good off the ball. We know this. Russ has done a great job since coming to the Clippers of making himself useful off the ball, whether it be crashing the offensive glass or setting screens. You like that guard-to-guard pick and roll action with Russ as the screener. You got a little bit of that today in this game. There was one play where he set a screen for Kawhi, rolled to the basket, got the ball in the short roll, and made a nice dime to Zubac, who, by the way, got a couple of buckets going early in the game, and I thought maybe that would lead to a good Zubac game, and it was a horrible Zubac game again, in my opinion. He looks absolutely low on confidence. He's not getting off the ground very well. He's getting stripped and blocked. He's making horrible reads in the pick and roll, in the short roll. It's just he's processing things very slowly in that short roll, making bad decisions, and has just been throwing the ball away and turning the ball over way too much for a center. And in this game, he did only have one turnover, but nothing he has done this season makes me confident. And I'm starting to question if he can be the starting center on a team that wants to win the championship. Now, besides Zoo, who we'll get into a little bit later, Russ and Harden together, it just makes them both off the ball more. Teams are still not going to really guard Russ. And when Russ is off the ball, it almost feels like he's being told, or he feels like he needs to play with that aggression scoring-wise like he was in Houston with Harden. And that's not what we need from Russ. But that's why I was so against this trade, because we are taking away Russell Westbrook's strength. We are making him more of an off-ball player, and now he's getting too aggressive. He shot more than Kawhi in this game. That's not what we want from Russ. He may have had 8 assists still, which was the most on the team, but that was coming more off of attacking off the ball. 13 points, 7 rebounds, 8 assists for Westbrook, which sounds good, and only 1 turnover, which I think comes from not having the ball as much as the initiator. But he was 6 for 18 from the field and 1 for 5 from 3. That's too many 3-point attempts from me. I always say Russell Westbrook needs to take maximum 3 threes, and if he's making 2 of those threes, okay, you can take a 4th. But 6 for 18 and then 1 for 5 from 3, no free throw attempts, by the way. He shot more times than Kawhi and twice as many shots as Harden, and that's just not what the Clippers need. It's not what the Clippers need at all. And it's just tough because you knew it was going to happen. So when I say it's very clunky, it's not a fluid mix of players at all. So it just feels as though, okay, Kawhi's getting a shot in a given possession, the other team's getting a shot in a given possession. What's the shot quality? At the end of the day, only one guy is shooting at a time. Not all 4 guys, that great players, are shooting at the same time or doing things at the same time. There is only one ball. So if it's not a great fit, then you don't really feel it as much. And right now you don't feel it at all that the Clippers have 4 guys. Like, for example, okay, Kawhi and Paul George would be the best players on the Brooklyn Nets. Would James Harden be the best player on the Brooklyn Nets? He has a case. I think he really does. Let me know in the comments if you think Mikal Bridges is better than Harden. I don't think Westbrook is as good as Mikal Bridges. But let me know, Westbrook fans, what you think of that. If you think there are 4 better players on the Clippers than there are on the Nets, then that's even more embarrassing. But you didn't feel it, right? When you watch the Warriors play in their prime, and the reason why I keep saying the Warriors is because they had 4 guys that were like stars. You know, if you don't think Russ is a star, fine, but he thinks of himself as a star, and the team treats him as such. And he has the personality of one, and he has the aura of one when you go to games, as cringy as that sounds. But it's true. But when I say the Warriors, it was such a perfect blend. You really felt like, oh my God, this team just has too much talent for us, and they play so well together. The Clippers, they're just figuring it out still. It's very clunky. It's very take-turnsy. You had the Westbrook shooting more than Kawhi thing. Russ and Harden not looking good together. It looks like all the bad shots that Russ takes are the ones that just look, I don't know, a lot of the bricks is with playing alongside James Harden. It felt like the makes were coming without Harden. It just doesn't feel good. And then Harden doesn't shoot in the first quarter. You know, 1 shot attempt in the first quarter. He had 0 in the last first quarter. And then in the beginning of the second, he gets to go off a little bit, had his 7 points in a row. Well, I don't know if it was in a row, but 7 points, 3 for 3 shooting. And then he just only shot 9 shots their whole game. And he was 4 for 9. So James Harden's only shot 9 shots in each game. 2 for 5 from 3 in this game. 12 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, 5 turnovers, though. I will say Harden was trying on defense. He was trying to slide his feet and doing the best that he can. So I'm really happy in that regard with Harden. But as the game wears on, just like everybody on the Clippers, though, it's not just Harden, he doesn't seem to keep up defensively. He gets blown by. He gets lost off the ball. There's no second effort on the rebounds. If Zook jumps out to contest, nobody is recovering and helping the helper. Harden being one of the guys kind of standing around. So we're not maximizing Westbrook or Harden when they're out there together because it's just too much of them off the ball. James Harden in this game showed a real resistance, and I've mentioned this. I mentioned this before we got him. He shows a real resistance to shoot, catch, and shoot threes. Despite his 41% mark, he has a real resistance for it. It's like it's uncomfortable for him, so he either takes a rhythm dribble or gets into his ISO or pick and roll. He turns him down, and it was hurting the Clippers in this game. 3 separate times. He had an open 3, and he didn't take it. Even one time in the corner, he pump faked unnecessarily and got blocked. Terrible. You are taking away James Harden's strengths by putting him off the ball, but you're doing the same with Westbrook, and they should have known that before they made this move. Now, are there solutions? Is this the only problem? Is that the only reason why the offense is clunky, that Russell Westbrook and James Harden are together? What are the other things that are happening? What's happening to 2-1-3 right now? What do we have to say about them? Going to be talking about that coming up. I got to tell you a little something about eBay Motors. Our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Basketball host, the king of Locked On Fantasy Basketball, or should I say the king of Locked On Basketball, Josh Lloyd, to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week, all season long, just like eBay Motors has the best parts for you all year, all life long. Whether you're prepping for a daily draft or scouting the waiver wire, every week we're going to provide you players that are guaranteed to fit on your roster. So let's see who the GOAT Josh Lloyd has picked out for us on this week's eBay's Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Picks of the Week. This week, out of all his picks, I'm going to go with DB, the Canadian sensation Dylan Brooks, who's helped the Rockets win 4 straight games. And I think if you're in a categories league, in a points league, I wouldn't go with Dylan. But if you're in a category league and you need someone that gets steals, I think with the amount of minutes that DB gets, and Josh, right on the money, has said his shooting will not stick, but Ime Udoka is pumping a lot of minutes into him. So that's a fact. And Dylan Brooks is going to get some steals. So if you're in a category league, I would go with that. Josh Lloyd from Locked On Fantasy Basketball is going to help you win your fantasy championship. And eBay Motors knows a championship team is about each player being a perfect fit, just like your vehicle. And if you have a personal experience about buying a part for your car from eBay, you got to go to eBay Motors. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you can make sure your ride stays running smoothly. Brake kits, LED headlights, roof rack, bumpers, whatever your baby needs, eBay Motors has it. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, it's not guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time. It's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Only available to U.S. customers. All right, let's keep going with the clunkiness of the LA Clippers, which right now just looks like a group of stars thrown together, group of talent, and hoping things stick without it really being a great fit. Now, it's still super early. We are not going to hit panic mode. 2 games is nothing, and the Knicks and the Nets were both playoff teams last season. Now, granted, I want to not leave out context here. The Clippers may have been missing Mason Plumlee, but the Nets were missing Ben Simmons. They were missing Cameron Johnson. They were missing Nick Claxton. So that's 3 starters, basically. And they were missing Cam Thomas for the second half, who got injured in this game, and he was cooking. 14 points for Cam Thomas in just 20 minutes. I wish him the best, and hopefully he has a speedy return to the court. But the Clippers up by 3, 49-46 at halftime. And the second half, it's where it kind of fell apart. And you started to see one of the big issues with this team outside of the clunkiness offensively. And that's their lack of size now because of the trade. They were just getting beat on the glass, especially late in the game. There was one possession where Royce O'Neal got like multiple rebounds and Paul George fell asleep. Russell Westbrook and James Harden both, especially Russ, I noticed in that second half, were falling asleep off the ball and getting beat on the glass. And just, it feels like all our defensive intensity is gone since we made the trade. All of it. And there's no excuse from the players, but I just think they're confused. Like, let me just give an example. Paul George. Last game, he only shot 11 times, right? So he starts out really aggressive in this game and has 14 shot attempts at halftime. He had 17 points at the half. So he's our best player at this point, coming out uber aggressive. Westbrook has 10 shot attempts, 3 for 10. So he's honestly shooting a little bit too much. And you're thinking Kawhi Leonard only has 7 shots. And of all people that shouldn't be taking less shots because of this trade, it's Kawhi Leonard. And so the third quarter, naturally, just like against the Knicks, he comes out being very aggressive. We come out calling more sets for him to get the ball. And he shoots 7 times in that quarter alone. So just as many shots in that quarter as the entire first half. And he played the entire third quarter. And he had 19 points. He had 19 points. I'm sorry, not 19. 9. Whew. He had 9 points. But Paul George, after being our most aggressive player in the first half, only shoots 1 time. And then you get 7 shots combined between Westbrook and Harden with only one of them going in. So Westbrook was 0 for 4 in the third and 0 for 4 in the first. So 0 for 8 if you combine those quarters. Tough. And it just felt like Westbrook was pressing the issue, forcing it because he was playing off the ball, and he's not doing his normal thing, which is being a play starter, a playmaker, a table setter. He's still making plays, but a table setter from the top. I just think we have him too much in the corner on the dunker, just too much off the ball. I like the quick hitters we were getting when he was the initiator, with Kawhi and Paul coming off screens, getting to work quickly. Maybe you get Westbrook cutting to the basket or diving for an offensive board. But you know what? Worst case, you kick it out to Russ. He penetrates in the middle of the floor and kicks. Now you don't have him in the middle of the floor as much when he's playing with Harden. And let's talk about Ty Lue. That has to be tough. Oh, so by the way, just to finish off on the shot distribution thing, my point is, stretches of the game now, Kawhi's being passive. He's not being aggressive. He's sitting in the corner because we have to accommodate Harden and Russ's on-ball needs. And then PG goes from aggressive to passive, and then Kawhi only shoots 1 shot in the fourth. Russ was the one bringing us back, granted, but for Kawhi to shoot 2 shots in the fourth, it's just not good enough. And then Paul George started falling in love with the 3. He was 0 for 4 from 3 in the fourth quarter, and James Harden was 0 for 2 from the field in the fourth. But let's talk about the subs, because Ty Lue, it's all out of whack. The offense looks clunky. I don't blame Ty Lue. I think he's trying with the plays, but I honestly think he should lay off the plays a little bit after dead balls sometimes. Maybe that's probably a hot take. It probably is. But seriously, just let him go and see what happens. That being said, Ty Lue's still drawing up some good stuff, especially that same play with the pin down and James Harden or Russ catches it from 18 feet and then waits for the other 2 to come off the screen. It's a little bit more motion. However, it's just not what these guys do. It just doesn't feel natural. So the Clippers only shot 40% in this game. The Nets actually only shot 40 as well, but the 3-ball was the difference. And the 3-ball has not been going for the Clippers since the trade has happened. Before that, they were scorching hot. 8 for 36 from deep. 22%. I think that number will obviously rise. Kawhi was missing a lot of threes that had nothing to do with rhythm, in my opinion. Maybe they did, though. Maybe they did. But in my opinion, he was just missing. 1 for 6 from deep. Paul George, 2 for 10 from 3. I very much think some of those were rhythm. He started out the game really solid, and then he finished 7 for 20 overall. He was our leading scorer with 24 points and 7 boards and 3 steals. But, 7 for 20 is not going to cut it. And then defensively, he was falling asleep in the second half. Only 7 rebounds is not good enough, honestly. Because Zubac's, the thing is, our point of attack defense for the second straight game has fallen off. Guys are not doing as good enough of a job of fighting over screens and staying in front of the ball, including Kawhi, who throughout the game, especially in the second and third quarter, I want to say, some bad closeouts, getting beat off the bounce, not typical from Kawhi Leonard. And, he seems to have lost a step defensively. definitely since after the ACL injury. I don't know about relative to last year. Because before the trade, he was playing really good defense, but I think these last 2 games, he hasn't been great on that end. Although his effort was still really good. At the end of the game, he was trying to fight over screens, but everybody else wasn't giving him much, help on that end in terms of the intensity on the ball defensively. The major thing was the rebounding late in the game. When the Clippers were trying to mount a comeback, that possession was just awful, if you know what I'm talking about. But the Clippers, when the guys are doing weak in the point of attack and Zubats has to come out and contest and get off his feet to contest, someone's got to help Zubats. And the thing is, it's usually a big guy that's trying to rebound that Zubats is guarding. So even if a smaller guy like a Harden or a Russ gets in the mix to try to deter that, they're too small. So that's why having a 6'9" with a 7-foot wingspan Rocco or a Nico was important for this team. Now, shot goes up. If Zubats jumps, his second jump is not that fast. He's not able to contest and then also rebound that same shot. That same shot that he contests if he leaves the floor, if he leaves the ground. He's just not that kind of athlete. So the point of attack needs to be better, but there needs to be some secondary help there. The helper needs to be helped. And the Clippers, their lack of size, it's a real issue. And let's go to the lineups because it shows you the lack of size even more so when we go to the bench. Now, the solution to the Mason Plumlee out thing was PJ Tucker in this game. I shouldn't say the solution, but what Ty Lue did was go with PJ Tucker at the 5 more. And granted, I think PJ played a lot better than his first 2 games as a Clipper. He was crashing the offensive glass. He had 3 offensive rebounds and 6 rebounds overall. Also 3 assists and 3 points. Played 20 minutes and 48 seconds. I mean, he was solid. I still just don't think he's very good anymore. No offense to PJ Tucker. Great guy. But let's go to the rotation. So PJ Tucker came in for Zoo at the 6:28 mark of the first quarter. So we went with this 5, small ball lineup. PJ Tucker at the 5, Kawhi, Paul, Harden, and Russ. And the Nets weren't hitting in the first quarter. Our defense was pretty good. And then Bones Highland entered at 4:38 for James Harden. So we had Russ, Bones, Kawhi, Paul, and PJ Tucker still. Then Terrence Mann, so I was happy to see Terrence Mann back. I thought his defensive impact was felt in the beginning, but he was kind of quiet overall. 19 minutes for Terrence, and he was 0 for 2. Both of those shots were threes, a donut. I think it's going to take some time, though, for Terrence. When I say some time, I mean a game or 2 more. But again, the having Harden now, it just minimizes Terrence. Now he's no longer starting. He's not going to get the minutes that Clipper fans were clamoring for him to get. It's a tough situation. Norman Powell also entered the game with Terrence for Russ and PG. So, to my shock, and that's not sarcastic, I thought we were going to always stagger Paul George and Kawhi. But I guess we're not for some minutes. I'm sorry, not Paul George and Kawhi. Harden and Russ. We had a lineup now of Terrence, Norm, PJ Tucker, Bones Highland, and Kawhi Leonard. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of that. And then especially when Kawhi Leonard comes out for Zoo at the 1 minute and 35 second mark. So we closed the last minute and 35 seconds of the first. Thankfully, it didn't bite us with none of our 4 best players. Insane. This is tinkering Ty again. This is not that whole taking the regular season seriously and all this. That's gone out the window. Now it's back to, and you can hear from Paul George's post-game comments. He was like, it's going to take time. We're too talented. All this. Lawrence Frank was saying this team will look different in a couple of months when he was asked how long it would take for this team to potentially, see how good this team can be. I mean, it's back to let's figure it out and work through things and basically downplaying losses. But James Harden, he ran the show in the second quarter to start it with PJ Tucker. No other 2-1-3 member. And then just 1 minute and 9 seconds in to the second quarter, Paul George came in, and then you started to see it more of a stagger for the rest of the way. I think there was a brief period, though, in the second half where we didn't do that. My issue is this. You have Harden, Bones, and Norm out there. It's very tough. And Bones, I'm afraid I have some bad news for the Bones fans in the next segment. What are the solutions to some of our issues? Going to be talking through those coming up. I got to tell you a little something about the Jace case or Jace Medical. We spend a lot of time talking together, you and I. We get fired up together on wins and losses, who starts and who sits. I'm thankful for that connection we have. And today I want our chat to be a little more personal. I just learned that you can get a 1-year supply on ED medications. You realize what that means? Bring on extended travel, bring on the next natural disaster or supply chain issue. You're covered, my friend. You don't have to worry about whether or not you can refill your generics for Cialis, Viagra, or Avatio prescription. And this is possible because of our friends at Jace Medical. Go online right now at jacemedical.com to receive your 12-month supply on your daily medication. Remember to use promo code LOCKEDON at checkout for a discount as well. A verified customer had this to say about Jace. I'm thankful for this service. Supply chain issues caused me to cut pills in half to have it. I ordered most of my daily meds with a year's supply. I also ordered an antibiotic kit. I feel secure now. Prices are lower than local pharmacies. I highly recommend this for everyone. If you or someone you love would get some peace of mind by having a year's supply of any daily med, go to jacemedical.com to see if it's offered for you. Remember to use promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. All right, so some of the solutions to the issues. Look, I'm sorry to say this, but it's exactly what I predicted. In Bones Highland, he's not really that neat in the rotation anymore when everyone's healthy. It's sad to say. He's not a very good off-ball player. He presses a little too much. His early catch-and-shoot three numbers, I think, were a little bit of fool's gold. I don't think that was going to... I think he can hit catch-and-shoot threes, but I just don't think that number was going to be steady. I think Bones Highland is best when he's got a nice balance, but a majority with the ball in his hands, running the point. He was getting better with his pick and roll reads, pushing pace, getting downhill, and not being as selfish because the ball was in his hands more. Now you're going to see him make more rash decisions because he's used to having the ball in his hands as a point guard, and now you're basically making him a two guard. It's just, and in the second half, he didn't even play. He doesn't offer much defensively. You're going to play Norm. You're going to have Harden out there. Norm, Harden, and Bones. It's just very tough. So even if you stagger and you always have Harden or Russ in, when Norm comes into the game, you automatically have one of those two pairings, whether it's Norm and Russ or Norm and Harden. You put Bones in there, that's a three-guard lineup that guys that, if it's with Harden, can't really guard. So now you have a problem, and it sucks for Bones, and it's another reason why I didn't want the trade, because I like the development of Bones, because I want to look at him as a player we can take into the Intuit Dome. But in this game, only 5 minutes and 47 seconds for Bones, 2 for 6 from the field. So the fact that he got 6 shots up in 6 minutes, I mean, that's part of why he was out. But Norman Powell, not too bad stat-wise. I think he just feels quieter because, again, we're back to having too many guards. But having James Harden now minimizes his minutes. He had 10 points on 4 for 8 shooting. But, yeah. Kawhi Leonard, 17 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, and a block on 7 for 16 shooting and 1 for 6 from 3. The 3-ball numbers, I wouldn't be too concerned. But 2 games in a row where he's shot 16 shots. Last game, he was 8 for 16. This one, 7 for 16. He had 18 points in the last one, 17 in this one. That's not enough for our best player. That's not enough. And I'll tell you the solutions. It's very simple. One of Harden or Russ has to go to the bench. But the problem is they have too much pride to go there. And in Russ's case, I feel for him because we promised him that he was going to be the starting point guard when we signed him. That was the agreement. But here's my issue. Why would Russ agree to having Harden just because he's friends with him? I get it, it's early, but if he didn't think that this couldn't work or may not work, then again, he should have learned with the Lakers where he put another ball handler there to take the ball away from him. That minimizes his value. And now there's going to be people clamoring for Russ to go to the bench because Harden is the better on-ball player and better with the ball in his hands. But I like the pace that Russ brought us, and it helped us have a defensive identity when surrounded by a defensive piece instead of Harden. But you can't go back now. So you got to make a decision. If Harden came off the bench, that would be insane. And he closed instead of Russ. I would love that. I'm still not a huge fan of Russ closing. Sorry to my Russ fans. I'm not. But, oh man, it's tough. People are going to want Terrence Mann to start. I understand that. People are definitely going to want Terrence Mann to start. The solution to the not having Mason Plumlee thing for the foreseeable future, let's sign Wenyen Gabriel. Why not? We've had him before on like a 10-day. He works hard. He can get some rebounds, maybe some interior buckets. PJ Tucker at the 5 is not the move. Another problem we're having right now is that we're asking Kawhi Leonard and Paul George to do too much defensively, and I think that's also wearing on them. You have your first 4 guys to start each half switching everything, and yes, Kawhi and Paul George are good defenders, but you don't want them to work too hard. And Harden is not a very good defender. Westbrook, he didn't play good defense in this game. Off ball, he was getting lost, and again, I didn't see the secondary effort that you need on the rebounding, especially when Zubac gets pulled out of the paint. And Zubac has to be better. There's no excuse anymore. Yeah, he had a double-double, 10 points, 10 rebounds. Didn't feel that way. He was going up soft. He was getting blocked. And defensively, I didn't feel his presence as much. He needs to be better. And I think he will be better. But it's only going to take time with this team. The offense is still just wonky. It's just a cluster, of stars that aren't very cohesive. And it just feels like a take-turnsy system with a decent shot. You get a decent shot every possession, but there's no flow. There's no rhythm being built. And now you have guys sacrificing too much or being too aggressive and just having trouble figuring it out. Whereas before, you had really defined roles and everybody could get the best out of themselves because they weren't asked to do something that was awkward for them. But, yeah, so that's one of my solutions, right? Wenyen Gabriel, and then you have to put one of them on the bench. The problem is, from everything I've heard, Russ doesn't want to come off the bench, and that's why I didn't want to do this. But we'll see. The Dallas Mavericks next. They just lost to the Toronto Raptors, but they've been playing pretty well this season. And you know how Luka is. Clippers have to win on the road. I mean, they're not doing a good job. 0-4 right now. They had 16 turnovers as a team. They were 100% from the foul line, though. That's the one positive of the game I'll give you. 13 for 13 from the line. And had more points in the paint than the Nets. 48-34. The Clippers just look small, and they look like they have no idea what they're doing. And with this also makes Ty Lue's job harder because now he has to figure this out. He's the one that looks bad for not being able to get the most out of a team with 4 players of this caliber. And if he doesn't put one of them on the bench, then he just looks soft as well. So that's another reason why I didn't want to do it is because you had Ty Lue not having to make such hard decisions. He already started out well with saying we got to take it more seriously, putting Terrence Mann in the starting lineup, playing Rocco more, and you saw the intensity defensively from the team themselves. That's the best sign. You want to see with actions, not just Ty Lue's words and lineup, choices. So everything was going fine, but we made the move, and now Ty Lue's looking bad. When he doesn't stagger, it looks weird. It should always be 2 of the big 4 in at all times. Harden and Kawhi are PG, or Russ and or Kawhi are PG. That's it, right there. But anyway, those are some of my solutions. In terms of long-term, we're going to need some either more point of attack defense or some more size in the front court. Maybe a little bit of both. So yeah, that trade, we're still nowhere near it to me. Nowhere near the Denver Nuggets. By the way, Jamal Murray's out for the entire month of November. So that should be an interesting development to look at if they fall in the standings. But Jokic is playing at such a high level right now. It's hard. And still, that doesn't really derail their championship chances that much because right now the Lakers, the Suns, a lot of teams look shaky. So 3-4, the Clippers fall to. The next game is against Dallas. We'll see you for that. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod. Subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, for even more LA Clipper content. Locked On Clippers. Make sure you leave a comment. Let me know what you think of the team, the game, what I'm saying. Am I right? Am I wrong? There's still a lot of time left, guys. Keep the faith that we'll get this right. I like the way James Harden is bought in, and he's trying. Let's see if it works. The age-old proverb continues. Go Clippers.